Revenge with Karen. I was elbow deep in a busted flower arch made from PVC pipe and false promises when I realized I hadn't eaten in 17 hours, and the volunteers had mutinied over the hors d'oeuvres. Cheryl, who once stapled her own hand to a trifold board during an outreach event, was sobbing over shrimp skewers that never arrived. Meanwhile, I was hot gluing fake orchids to a cardboard column and whispering affirmations to myself like some burnout Pinterest mom on the edge. The gala was 6 hours away. The/V guy had just quit via group text, and the nonprofit's executive director, Todd, human khaki pant, was across town getting a manicure and practicing his speech in front of his ring light. 4 years of this. 4 years of saving this crumbling arts nonprofit with duct tape, charm, and my personal credit card. I once paid December payroll out of pocket because a donor check bounced and the board was skiing through it. I've forged venue contracts, begged printers to run overnight, and taught myself QuickBooks during a thunderstorm in a flooded basement. I've smiled through backhanded praise like, Natalie's just so dependable, which is boardroom code for, we don't have to promote her because she'll fix everything anyway. By the way, if you're still listening and not just watching this unfold while folding laundry or driving to Costco, do me one small favor. Tap that subscribe button and throw us a like. 97% of folks listen without subscribing, and it seriously boosts the team behind these stories. Helps us keep exposing the Todds of the world with a little extra sting. All right, back to the carnage. Todd never noticed the systems I built, just showed up with his smug posturing and tried to ride the Stratacore partnership like a pony at a county fair. His emails were all circle back and leverage momentum, but when it came time to draft grant proposals or soothe angry artists, guess who they called? Not Mr. Vision Board, that's for damn sure. The board thought Todd was charming. He's got presence, one of them told me once, sipping Prosecco like it was wisdom. Presence. Man once introduced our dance troupe as the Funky Toe Collective. They're a classical ballet group from Lithuania. Still, I kept showing up. Because I loved the mission, hell, I was the mission. The artists knew it, the stagehands knew it, the interns knew it. But I'd been playing the good soldier for too long, and it was finally eating me alive. So I drafted my resignation. Typed it up late one night after mopping paint water off the lobby floor. It was simple. No theatrics, just thank you for the opportunity. My last day will be October 15th following the gala. I never hit send, not yet. I wanted to see the project through, wanted to leave on a high note, a clean break, quiet dignity. I told no one, not even Marla, our front desk guardian and chaos translator. I just filed the letter in a just-in-case folder and returned to ordering name tags for people who'd never remember mine. Gala was my final act. I planned every inch, the lighting rig, the custom programs, even the calligraphed menus with vegan options, because if you've never had to source gluten-free spanakopita for a donor with a podcast, are you even in nonprofit? The crown jewel? A $2 million check from Stratacore Logistics. It was my relationship, my courtship, my 12 months of corporate dance and budget walkthroughs. Todd was already workshopping how to name a theater wing after himself. He strutted into rehearsals the day before the event with sunglasses and a latte, nodded once, and said, make sure they mention my role in this partnership during the speech. Maybe like in the intro? I stared at him for a beat too long, then just replied, sure, Todd, maybe in Comic Sans. He didn't get the joke. And honestly, that was the first moment I felt it, the shift. Smog in my head cleared just enough to see it. This man, this room, this job, it wasn't my world anymore. I'd already outgrown it. My loyalty was no longer noble. It was masochism in a sequin dress. Still, I showed up the next morning in black heels and a clipboard, teeth clenched around a pen, and prayers whispered to the god of last-minute vendors. Because good soldiers don't desert the field during battle. They finish what they started, even if the generals are fools. The morning before the gala, I sat alone in the storage closet/office, sipping instant coffee from a chipped mug that said ART saves lives, while staring at a spreadsheet titled Table Assignments Final, really this time. The irony was delicious. I'd mapped this entire event down to the minute, color-coded every donor interaction, and built contingency plans for things like what if Mayor Mendez brings his mistress again. The only thing I hadn't planned for, truly, was what it would feel like to walk away. Not storm out, not burn bridges, just leave quietly like mist off a lake. My plan was simple. I'd get through tonight, smile for the cameras, shake every damn manicured hand in that ballroom, and then vanish like a well-trained ghost. Leave my keys in a labeled envelope. Maybe bake a goodbye loaf for Marla, something with cranberries. Maybe not. It didn't matter. What mattered was dignity. No scenes, no speeches, no Todd drama. Just a clean severance from a place that had become both my sanctuary and my cage. I was halfway through alphabetizing name badges when my phone buzzed. It was Lydia from Stratacore, logistics queen, donor whisperer, and the only person in a blazer who ever looked me in the eye during meetings. Her text was simple, quick check-in. We're at the venue for walkthrough. Bring your magic clipboard. So I slapped on lipstick, ditched the hoodie, and made my way down to the ballroom. They were waiting near the stage, Lydia, her boss Richard, and someone I hadn't met before. Youngish guy with the calm, cashmere energy of someone who knows he doesn't need to raise his voice to get a room's attention. Probably Stanford, possibly cult adjacent, but he smiled like he'd already read my resume. Natalie Reyes, Lydia said, gesturing with a kind of reverence that made me want to hide behind a curtain, the reason this whole night won't go up in flames. Richard shook my hand, firm and respectful. You've made our decision very easy. I blinked. Decision? Lydia smirked. We've been to 5 galas this year. Yours is the only one that doesn't feel like a hostage situation. You run a tight ship, and we're not the only ones noticing. She dropped that line like a breadcrumb, casual and deliberate. The new guy leaned in. There's going to be an RFP coming down next quarter. Community engagement, brand alignment. We want someone who can actually execute, not just talk a good game. He looked directly at me. Would you be open to consulting? I felt something twist in my chest, not dread, not even excitement, just oxygen, like someone had opened a window I didn't know was nailed shut. I smiled, polite but measured, happy to talk when the time's right. Let's make sure it is, Richard said. We'll follow up next week. And just like that, the conversation shifted. They moved into notes about lighting angles and photo ops. But I stood there for another beat, holding my clipboard like a shield and pretending to check my notes, even though my heart was sprinting through a door I hadn't dared approach in months. Because what they were offering wasn't just work. It was respect. It was a chance to build something new without having to mop it first. It was a future. But I kept it to myself, didn't tell anyone, not even Marla, because good exits aren't built on whispered hope or half-baked plans. They're built on restraint, precision, dignity. I wasn't going to jinx this. Not after 4 years of swallowing glass and calling it gratitude. Let Todd have his little speech. Let him suck up the spotlight one more time. I'd already started lighting the stage for something far bigger than his name on a banner. I just had to make it through tonight. One more night. One more standing ovation. Then I'd be gone. The lights dimmed right on schedule. The string quartet struck up their polished rendition of Claire de Lune, which I'd specifically chosen because it gave the illusion of elegance without the licensing fees. The room glowed with soft gold uplighting, an illusion of warmth that made even the board members look human, and the tables shimmered with the centerpieces I'd arranged myself when the florist no-showed last minute. Stratacore's banner hung above the stage in perfect alignment, courtesy of me climbing a ladder in heels at 2 p.m. while Todd was rehearsing transitions in the green room. The night was going perfectly. Donors were smiling. Check-ins ran smooth. Silent auction had already passed last year's numbers, and some hedge fund guy in a velvet jacket was aggressively bidding on a weekend watercolor retreat in Akron. I was 10 minutes away from escape velocity. Then came the scent, aqua di ego and disappointment. Todd. He waltzed into the ballroom a full 40 minutes late, cheeks pink and breath minty, in that overly intentional way that screams I've been drinking. But I want you to think I'm clever about it. His blazer had a pocket square that looked like it came with a magician starter kit, and his hair had that slightly crunchy texture that happens when insecure men discover product after divorce. I felt my spine straighten as he beelined to the MC, whispered something, and pointed toward the stage with the casual confidence of someone who'd contributed absolutely nothing, but expected applause anyway. Marla shot me a look from the check-in desk like, I tackle him or let it happen. I shook my head. Let the man play. The MC gave a tight smile, then spoke into the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with the awards, a few words from our executive director, Mr. Todd Whitman. Cue the polite golf claps. Cue the part where I had to stand there and pretend I wasn't chewing through the lining of my cheek. Todd took the stage like a discount cruise director, holding the mic too close and beginning with a joke about how galas are just prom for people with donor fatigue. Half the room chuckled. The rest just blinked. Then he pivoted. Of course, none of this would be possible without our amazing team. When Stratacore first approached us about deepening their engagement, well, let's just say, they saw what we were building here. And I think that's a testament to all of us. My jaw didn't clench. My fingers didn't twitch. I just nodded slightly and kept smiling like someone's date at a mafia dinner. When he finally stepped down, I gave him a brief, quiet, nice job. It was all teeth. Then it was my turn. I walked up the stage steps with the ceremonial Stratacore check in hand, a giant foam rectangle that represented $2 million and exactly zero of Todd's effort. The lights were hot, the room quiet, the photographer in place. I smiled. Genuinely, because this was the last moment, the last bow, and then my phone buzzed. I had it in my hand, half tucked behind the check, waiting to read the speech notes I'd emailed to myself. But that buzz, God, I felt it in my bones. The kind of buzz that doesn't feel like a reminder or a meme. The kind that feels like a blade. I glanced down. Fired, 3 words, 1 emoji, all lowercase, no signature. I blinked once. Then I leaned into the microphone, held up the phone like a toast, and said with perfect calm, "Well, folks, apparently I've just been fired." The room froze, even the cello held its breath. A woman near the bar gasped audibly. Somewhere in the back, silverware hit the floor. And then, through the silence like thunder cracking glass, who the hell just fired Natalie Reyes? It was James Caldwell, Stratacore's CEO, still seated, staring dead center at the board's table. Todd, standing stage left, suddenly looked very sober. I didn't flinch, didn't smile. I simply lowered the mic, placed the oversized check on its stand like a sacred relic, and walked offstage with the kind of stillness you only get from knowing, not thinking, not hoping, but knowing that something seismic has shifted. I took my seat at the back of the room like nothing happened, crossed my legs, picked up my water. Todd had just set a match. Too bad I'd already laid the fuse. Silence doesn't always arrive gently. Sometimes it stomps in like a drunk uncle at a wedding, loud in its absence, messy in its implications. That's what it felt like in the ballroom right after I read the text aloud. 300 people frozen mid-sip, mid-chew, mid-sentence. Forks paused halfway to botoxed mouths. The photographer slowly lowered his camera like he was afraid even the shutter sound might make things worse. And there I stood, backlit and center stage, holding a giant check in one hand and a cell phone in the other like I was Moses descending with new commandments. Except instead of stone tablets, I had a $2 million check and a pink wine headache. I repeated it once more, clear as glass. "You are fired," smiley face. Then, like thunder in a church, James Caldwell roared, "Who the hell just fired Natalie Reyes?" And that's when it snapped. Gasps rippled through the room like dominoes tipping over each other's disbelief. Someone at the VIP table muttered, "Oh my God." Another whispered, "Did she say fired?" The Stratacore PR woman, cool as a cucumber 10 minutes ago, was now white-knuckling her wine glass like it owed her child support. Todd stood near the curtain, frozen, looking like someone had just slipped a live eel down the back of his shirt. I watched him process the moment in real time. The realization that he wasn't the one holding the spotlight anymore was under it, and it burned. The board, they looked like mannequins at a Sears fire sale, dead-eyed, mid-panic, and overexposed. Beverly, our board chair, looked particularly ghostly, her botoxed brow trying and failing to express concern while she tapped furiously on her phone, probably Googling how to fire someone without witnesses. I didn't say another word. I didn't have to. I walked calmly to the edge of the stage, stepped down one heel click at a time, handed the check off to Lydia from Stratacore, who met my eyes with a look that was part shock, part reverence, part "oh, we're gonna talk." As I crossed the ballroom back to my seat, the audience parted like I was radioactive, or sacred, maybe both. I sat down at table 12, straightened my linen napkin, and took a sip of water like I was just another guest waiting on creme brulee. Around me, conversation didn't resume, it collapsed. Whispers filled the space like smoke. Cameras came out, phones, press, the works. One of the local news crews in the back had started filming discreetly during Todd's speech, probably expecting a puff piece. Instead, they got a career obituary. Todd, bless his delusional heart, tried to recover. He walked back on stage, no mic, no script, just raw, desperate flop sweat, and attempted a laugh. Wow, that was unexpected humor from Natalie. he said, raising his arms like he was hosting a charity roast. "We like to keep things light around here, huh?" Nobody laughed. He tried again. "She's just joking, of course, Natalie, and I have that kind of rapport." More silence. No one moved. Then James Caldwell stood up slowly, like a man preparing to deliver a verdict. His voice cut across the room like a scalpel. "We fund this institution because of its people. If what I just witnessed is real, I suggest this board convene immediately." And then he walked out, just like that. Stratacore's CEO, gone. Others began trickling after him, not in protest, just in instinct, like wildebeest moving away from the watering hole because they smelled lion piss in the grass. I didn't cry. I didn't fume. I sat perfectly still, watching it all unfold like a woman at the eye of the hurricane she didn't start, but damn sure wasn't stopping either. Arla texted me from across the room. "Are we in a Lifetime movie?" I typed back, "No, this is PBS, and I'm the documentary narrator now." The MC tried to steer things back on course, but it was useless. The magic was gone. The night had turned from gala to guillotine. The whispers were louder than the music, and every single person in that ballroom knew one thing: Natalie Ray's just detonated a nuke, with a smiley face. By the time I got home that night, taken off my heels but not my armor, I made tea I didn't drink, stared at my phone for 20 minutes, then opened a clean spreadsheet titled Documentation: The Fall of Todd. No emojis this time. I didn't sleep, not really. Just sat on the couch in my gala dress, bare feet tucked under me, watching as messages trickled in like cautious scouts. Lydia from Stratacore was first. "I'd like to set something up this week. For now, know that we see you. We're moving fast." The next morning, the board inbox exploded. Stratacore formally requested an emergency meeting citing leadership inconsistencies. They CC'd the legal team and included a soft threat disguised as a polite clarification. "Pending resolution of this matter, all funding is temporarily suspended." That's when the sharks started circling. By noon, 2 more corporate sponsors sent similar messages, each one slightly more direct, less polite. Turns out when you build relationships on actual work instead of ego and golf outings, people notice when you're gone, especially when you're fired via emoji in front of a donor crowd. Live, with cameras. Todd, of course, went silent. Radio silence, like a coward on mute, not even a fake apology. Just a void where leadership should have been. By 3 p.m., my inbox pinged again. This time it was Beverly, the bodoxed board chair, requesting a discreet conversation. I met her and 2 others, Jared and Denise, the ones with real money and reputations that didn't like being dragged into circus acts, at a quiet bistro across town. They came in looking like people who just Googled how to backtrack professionally. Beverly dabbed at her lipstick with a cloth napkin. "Natalie, I think we're all feeling surprised. That was certainly not the send-off we expected." I just raised a brow. Wasn't planning on a send-off. I had a resignation letter drafted. I wanted it clean. Denise leaned in, voice lower. "Look, what exactly happened? We've seen the footage, but we'd like your version." Candidly, I nodded, pulled out my laptop, clicked open a folder labeled Receipts. Literally, I didn't rant, didn't monologue. I just started sliding documents across the table, one by one, chronologically, dispassionately. Late paychecks, unreimbursed expenses, or emails Todd never forwarded. Event proposals I wrote with his name slapped across the final version. Internal memos where he claimed credit for the Stratacore deal after ghosting 3 of their planning calls. Even one text where he told a donor I was just the logistics girl. They went quiet. The kind of silence that says, we knew he was bad, but we didn't know it was this systemic. Jared finally said, "You've been documenting this all along?" I shrugged. Someone had to care about the paper trail. Beverly looked like she'd swallowed a paperclip. "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" I tilted my head. "Would you have listened?" She didn't answer. The conversation ended with them asking if I'd be willing to share this material during the board review. I told them I'd consider it, depending on how they handled the next 48 hours. I wanted no favors, no reinstatement, just truth. With teeth. Later that week, the whispers began. Arla texted me. Beverly called Todd unpolished on a Zoom call. Jared's talking to legal. Shit is moving. In the world of nonprofits where smiles are currency and grudges wear pearls, that kind of gossip is as loud as sirens. People were sniffing the air and realizing the rot wasn't in the underlings. It was sitting in the executive suite with a drink in his hand and a LinkedIn post about resilience. Somewhere deep in Todd's gut, I knew he felt it. That chill, that slow awareness that the empire of credit he built was cracking beneath him. And me? I didn't gloat, didn't tweet. I just kept building the file, quietly, efficiently, like a woman laying out bones before the feast. By Friday morning, my inbox had turned into a crime scene. It started with a reply all email from Todd, subject line, urgent clarification on Gala incident. The man couldn't manage a catering contract. He sure found time to write a novella when his throne started shaking. In it, he accused me by name of orchestrating a disruptive spectacle designed to undermine leadership and compromise donor confidence. Spectacle? I read a text message aloud. That's not sabotage, it's literacy. But the poison had been released. Within hours, the media picked it up. Local arts blogs, always hungry for nonprofit drama, and let's be honest, were their Kardashians. And with headlines like, Executive Director's Gala Ambush, is internal sabotage sinking the arts center? And the real kicker, Natalie Ray's stuns Gala crowd with live firing stunt, performance art, or petty drama. The second one even called me a self-proclaimed logistics savant. Self-proclaimed? Honey, I kept this place alive through 3 floods, 2 embezzlement audits, and a lead paint mural project. The day spiraled from there. By noon, nonprofit's website had been updated. My name, gone, scrubbed. No bio, no archive speeches, no Natalie's Notes blog posts. Just a blank space where 4 years of soul had lived. They even removed my photo from the past events page. I hadn't been fired, I'd been erased. At 3:17 p.m., a manila envelope landed on my doorstep via courier. Inside, a cease and desist letter drafted on the nonprofit's letterhead, signed by some shaky-hand boutique lawyer Todd probably found in a LinkedIn ad for divorce mediators. It claimed that I had violated non-disparagement expectations by publicly maligning internal communications. In other words, I wasn't supposed to tell the truth, especially not into a microphone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But something inside me slid out of place, like a bone that had been cracked for years, finally giving up and snapping clean through. Arla called me in a panic. They're locking your accounts, Nat. Email, file access, even the shared drive. They can have it, I said. I already saved everything that mattered, and I had every memo, every budget, every petty email where Todd forwarded my reports with his name in the header. I wasn't stupid, I'd been quiet. Big difference. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means preparation. At 6:42 p.m., I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Natalie, this is James Caldwell. I'd like to have dinner, just us. No PR, no board. I have a proposal I think you'll want to hear. I stared at it for a full minute before replying. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., Pier House. He wrote back one word, perfect. That night, I didn't pace. I didn't draft a war plan. I sat on my porch with a glass of wine, watching the neighborhood kids draw chalk whales on the sidewalk. My phone buzzed every 15 minutes with new alerts, op-eds, more bored whispers, and one voicemail from Beverly saying they were reviewing the situation and that they hoped I'd honor confidentiality moving forward. I didn't respond, because here's the thing they never understood. I was never looking to torch the place, but they fired the woman who built the fire exits. And now someone was inviting me to design a whole new building. One where my name wouldn't be scrubbed out of the blue, and where I'd never again be handed a cease and desist for telling the truth. The restaurant James picked wasn't flashy. No white tablecloths, no rooftop skyline views, just a warm, dark corner of Pier House, dim sconces, soft jazz, the kind of place where real decisions get made and no one Instagrams the shrimp cocktail. He was already seated when I arrived. No entourage. No assistant, just a single glass of neat bourbon and a look in his eye like he'd already run 3 simulations of this conversation and knew exactly where it was headed. He stood as I approached and pulled out my chair, which frankly made me suspicious. Men don't get courteous like that unless they're about to ask for something or confess to something bigger. Thanks for coming, he said. I debated whether I should even reach out. Didn't want to make your week harder. I gave a polite smile. Don't worry, Todd's doing a fantastic job of that on his own. We sat. The waiter came and went. I ordered tea to buy time. James didn't small talk. I'll cut to it, he said. What I saw at that gala was someone holding an institution together until it crushed her. He paused, letting the silence do the real talking. I don't want to be part of that kind of structure. I want to build something with someone who actually gives a damn. You. Not the facade, not the title, you. My fingers curled lightly around the rim of my mug. He leaned forward. I want to offer you a consulting role, direct, with Stratacore. You'd lead our cultural outreach expansion, program design, strategic partnerships, the whole vertical. It's yours to shape. The words sat between us heavy and clean. He wasn't talking about a band-aid job. He was talking about replacement surgery. Removing the middleman. Removing Todd. But I didn't flinch. I reached into my bag, pulled out my laptop, and opened a folder titled Outreach Initiative Independent Drafts. I turned it toward him without a word and clicked into a file I hadn't shown anyone, not the board, not even Marla. What appeared was a 26-page deck: logo, mission, impact models, proposed partnerships. All of it drafted 2 months ago. Funny, I said calmly. I started building this in May, right after Todd pitched a mural series that turned out to be copied from a 2014 TEDx talk and a BuzzFeed listicle. James blinked. You were already planning this? I nodded once. I never planned to launch it. I just needed to know I could, that I wasn't chained to a ship I didn't sign off on. He scrolled through the proposal. Slowly, no dramatic gasps, just the steady recognition of someone watching a chessboard flip upside down. I knew you were good, said finally. Didn't know you were this. I closed the laptop. I'm not looking for revenge, James. I'm not a grenade with a grudge. I just want to work with people who don't punish competence. He smiled, not smug, not performative. Just a man who'd been waiting to find someone who didn't waste time auditioning. I'll have legal draft the paperwork, he said. But know this, you're not a consultant. You're a builder. And we don't erase builders from websites. Left the restaurant with no dessert, no toast. Just the echo of that sentence in my ear and a faint scent of wood smoke on my coat. That night, I sat by the window and watched the nonprofit social feed. They'd posted a photo of a half-empty event from 3 months ago. Todd's face front and center. Not a single comment. No shares. No likes. And then my phone buzzed with a new email from Stratacore's legal team, subject line, Engagement Terms Raise Initiative. I didn't reply, not yet, because now I wasn't responding. I was choosing. It started with a one-line email. Stratacore's legal team addressed it to the board, copied every major sponsor, and blind CC'd, well, everyone who mattered. Effective immediately, Stratacore Logistics is terminating all financial commitments to the Downtown Arts Collective, pending structural overhaul and leadership reevaluation. No press release. No performative quotes. Just a kill shot, clinical and final. By mid-morning, 2 more sponsors followed suit, one citing unmet transparency expectations, the other simply saying, we no longer align with current leadership. Translation, Todd's dead in the water and we're not tying our yachts to his corpse. The nonprofit's donation portal, usually a soft hum of recurring gifts and gala pledges, went silent, like a church organ mid-hymn that suddenly coughed smoke. No new donors, no renewals. Just a slowly draining account and a leadership team blinking at spreadsheets they didn't know how to read without me. By Friday, the board called an emergency closed-door session. The agenda leaked by lunchtime because no one respects a leaky ship they're about to abandon. The items were delicious. Review of recent funding terminations, investigation into alleged retaliation, and HR misconduct discussion of executive leadership realignment. That same day, someone inside HR dropped the real bomb. 3 memos surfaced. Internal, time-stamped. All marked confidential and tagged with my name. One memo noted Todd's concerns about staff loyalty and advised proactive access restrictions to mitigate future reputational risk. Another outlined a directive to scrub non-essential former employees from web and donor materials. The third was just a list of people who'd engaged too closely with me at the gala. It read like a hit list drawn in Excel. And suddenly, the story shifted. I wasn't a rogue staffer with a flair for drama anymore. I was a whistleblower with documents and poise and witnesses. Todd tried to salvage what was left. He booked a local press room, some dusty space downtown with folding chairs and a borrowed podium. Sent out invites to reaffirm the organization's vision. Only 2 people showed up. One unpaid intern from a community newsletter and a journalist from the food section who thought it was a tasting event. Stammered through a 10-minute speech peppered with words like miscommunication, external influences, and reframing the narrative. He wore a navy blazer with a crooked pocket square and the hollow stare of a man realizing the emperor's clothes weren't just invisible, they were repossessed. When asked why Stratacore pulled funding, he muttered something about creative differences and then left out the back before anyone could ask a follow-up. Meanwhile, I made no statement, no press tour, no grand rebuttal. I launched my new firm that same week, quietly. No ribbon cutting, no Instagram announcement. Just a modest domain registration, an LLC filing, and a homepage that said one thing: Raise Collective, real strategy, real people, real impact. The clients came without coaxing. Stratacore first, then a community health nonprofit I'd advised years ago, then an urban youth theater program looking to scale. All of them knew what they were getting, not a figurehead, not a brand, but a builder. Someone who didn't need to wear a crown to lead, just a clipboard and a clear schedule. From the outside, it looked like calm, no fireworks, no victory dance. But beneath the still water was something warmer, deeper, satisfaction. Not the petty kind that needs applause. The kind that knows the House of Todd was never strong enough to survive an honest wind. And I had just learned to build storms. Ballroom looked nothing like the one from a year ago. Bigger venue, sleeker lines, no crumbling stage curtains or discount orchids zip-tied to PVC. The light was sharper, cleaner. Uplighting bathed the walls in a deep violet, and everything smelled faintly of lavender and contract fulfillment. The Stratacore logo floated on a digital backdrop behind the stage, not the logistics division, but Stratacore Outreach, Inc., a full-fledged, dependent branch focused on cultural and community investment. And right beneath the title, printed in subtle, serif gold, Chair, Natalie Rays. I stood near the back for a while, watching the crowd filter in. Some familiar faces, artists, donors, the few staffers who'd made it out of the Todd era intact. A handful of old board members, too. Beverly showed up, of course. Nothing draws out the soft shoe survivors like a red carpet with corporate backing. She wore a shimmery dress and a strategically apologetic smile. I didn't approach her, but eventually she found me. "Hello, Natalie," she said, clutching a champagne flute like it might protect her from memory. "This is quite something." "Elegant," I nodded, polite. "We had a good team." She lingered, then finally offered it. The line, the full-circle admission. "We should have listened sooner." I held her gaze, gave a small, patient smile. "Can you save for people who finally read the instructions after burning the house down?" "It worked out," I said, eventually. Then I moved on. Backstage, a production assistant handed me the mic with nervous hands. "You're on in 60 seconds, Miss Rays." Miss Rays, not Natalie. Not that woman from the gala. Not logistics. Just the name I came in with, clean and whole. I took the stage with no intro, no preamble. The lights didn't blind me this time, framed me. No Todd in sight. He'd been unofficially blacklisted months ago after a failed attempt to launch a visionary nonprofit consulting brand that quietly shuttered after 1 quarter, 3 lawsuits, and a disastrous podcast interview where he referred to grant writers as idea typists. I stood there alone, center stage, in front of 400 people, many of whom had watched me be erased like a typo. Now, they watched in stillness, looked out over the crowd, exhaled once, and began. "Last year, I was fired in this room." A few gasps, some stiff backs. One loud cough of recognition. I didn't flinch, didn't pause. "Tonight, I'm funding 6 new programs. Let's begin." And the place erupted, not into chaos, into affirmation. Applause that wasn't for drama or scandal or survival. It was for the return. For the architect. The woman who didn't torch the stage, she rebuilt it. I moved into the agenda. Quiet, poised, surgical. Outlined the new initiatives. A cross-borough youth mural exchange, micro-grants for undocumented artists, mobile galleries in underfunded districts. Nothing performative, just the work, real, funded, launching Monday. There was no standing ovation at the end, not because it wasn't deserved, but because the room understood. This wasn't about spectacle anymore. It was about order being restored. I stepped down, mic off, to the wings where Lydia was waiting. "You realize you just opened the biggest arts fund in the state tonight," she whispered. I smiled and adjusted my bracelet. "No," I said, "we redirected it." Outside, people lined up for press photos. I skipped the line. I walked to the curb where a black car was waiting, got in, rolled the window down. And as we pulled away, I looked back at the venue, glowing in the night, alive with purpose. They had built a building and tried to stuff me in the walls. Now, I owned the blueprint. The engine they fired became the architect they answer to. And that, as always, was the plan. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.